title is a bit ambitious. I've thought about it. I feel a bit like a fraud. Looks like I'm going to present some answers, but actually I've got more questions to present, and I hope that that's okay and engaging and interesting regardless. But to get straight to the point, I have a dream, I could say. I have a dream that we would find out what all these fiddly bits, Twitter, Facebook, and what have you, how can we leverage them to get people aware of what actually works? What should they do to be more safe and more healthy at work? So we do a research project. We're bloody scientists. We believe in evidence-based medicine. We do a study and we find out. Right. So the objective would be to find out if and how we can increase the uptake of our message using social media. I thought, okay, let's put it in science terms. Well, the methods would be some kind of intervention study with a pre-post repeated measures design. The intervention here being a social media strategy that I tried to extract from the French space people, but didn't quite succeed, so I have to make something of myself, on my own, and with a little help from my friends, hopefully. And we would compare what we can achieve with this sort of strategy to doing it ad hoc, like people have been saying. They're, only dabbling in Twitter and whatnot, really trying it out. Well, that's what I've been doing, really ad hoc and not very systematic. But if we manage to do it smartly, would that have any difference? And the results would be measurable in a sort of, some sort of impact, first of all, in the hard metrics. We've been hearing about impact factor and citations and whatnot. We can measure those. That's nice. Clear data. Very nice for a researcher. And then we could also measure activity in social media on the various platforms and what they produce. And that's a bit more messy, but interesting in itself as well. And finally, the really cool thing would be to have some sort of guide, I've said an idiot's guide, the idiot being me, that even if I can do it, and so could you, with limited resources, without having 2,000 rocket scientists at your beck and call, and the $1 million budget that you have at NIOSH, can you still do it and have an effect and make people safer and healthier?
We're not giving it to you.
Damn it! Right, a few words. I didn't want to go too much into this chest beating of who we are. Yes, we're the Cochrane Collaboration. We're this secret society globally. We have a secret handshake. Well, not really. It's almost 100 groups all around the world, 31,000 people, doing mostly voluntarily, led from. Actually, it's London and Oxford, well, these, stiff upper lip people. We don't get any central funding, meaning you want to do a review, yeah, okay, it's best if you bring your own money, because, it's mostly voluntary. But the mission is to find out what really works in healthcare. Our mission is to find out what works in occupational safety and health. The whole thing was named after Archie Cochrane, this little guy here, looking very smart over his glasses. He was an epidemiologist, had this wonderful, wonderful idea in the 70s already. Wouldn't it be nice if we put all the really good research together, made a summary on every topic, on what actually works and what doesn't work? And then in the early 90s, it was taken up and this whole secret society was put up. So we produce systematic reviews, which is a fancy name for a summary of research, and you do fancy tricks in statistics and you get numbers out of it. It's published in the Cochrane Library with a fairly reasonable impact factor of 5.7. And then there's us, the OSH review group, which is part of the Cochrane Collaboration, one of 53 review groups that are actually the sort of engine of the collaboration that produce these reviews. All the other different group types are there to support us. Excuse me. We've got nowadays almost 200 authors, so the slaves who actually do the work all over the world in 21 different countries. And so far we've published 8 reviews and 18 protocols. That's a key feature of Cochrane reviews, that you first have to write a detailed study plan, which is called a protocol. That gets peer-reviewed and then published online, and anyone can comment like, there's this thing and that thing, and you know, then the comments get incorporated, and the authors have to make changes if it's found valid. Right, and then we've got about 40 reviews now in various stages. And of course, yeah, we focus on OSH, surprisingly enough. And you know, in comparison to you know, previous speakers, we have massive resources. That's the what you see there. And I've failed to add a social media editor, being myself. I don't know, 0.1 or 0.0 something. So I'm doing that on top of trying to keep this whole shop running. Of course, we have, you know, the traditional stuff, like a website looks like this. That's the web address. Go and have a look. It's all nice stuff. Really heavy science and you know, good stuff. Well, of course, the most important bit is our reviews, our product. We've tried to make a nice tree structure in explaining, well, what topics do these reviews and protocols address, and it's all broken down by exposure, prevention, treatment, all that sort of stuff. And if you're really clever, you'll notice it says 124 when I said we have 40 reviews. Well, that's all the occupational safety and health relevant reviews done by whichever review group. Because before us there was a back group, and there still is an ear, nose and throat group and all that. They're more disease specific or body part specific. And we take the credit for their reviews as well, even if just as long as they're relevant to occupational safety and health. So, okay, yeah, this is all fine and dandy, but, you know, what do you mean with this whole business of interventions? I mean, how hard can it be? You know, everyone knows, you know, if you take away a noisy thing, you won't be exposed to noise, and therefore you'll be healthy and you have good hearing. It doesn't always work that way. For example, this is a good example. We have a teacher who talks all day. At the end of the day, is very hoarse, can't speak, maybe a sore throat and all that. So she suffers what the scientists or the speech people called dysphonia. So what will be the best intervention? How could we best help the teacher not develop this dysphonia? Or when she's got it, what would be the best way to manage the problem so that it doesn't get worse? Would it be something in terms of speech therapy, not actually talking, going through how to breathe and talk and you know, maybe sing a little or whatever, which is, you know, good for the, you know, lungs and all that. I'm a singer myself, I know, in a choir, which is also good for, you know. Or would it be changing the classroom environment, thinking of acoustics, you know, all this fancy equipment like she's got in the picture. You know, you don't have to scream that hard if you go to mic and amplification. Or would it be something of a mixture of all these? And you don't know if you haven't done a systematic review looking at all these interventions separately or together, and if you haven't done a summary of, well, how much do these things, what's the effect size and all. So that's what we do, and we've done a review on this, so you can go and read it or find it through our website. It's very nice. Okay, so how do we disseminate with the massive resources that we have on our disposal? Okay, we tried to do press releases. We have this nice bi-monthly newsletter that I tried to make as fun as possible without compromising the intellectual content. It's been fairly popular, but still only about 1,000 recipients, which is very meager, on a global scale. I've dabbled a little in various social media, tweeting. I'm a little bit mixed here regarding whether or not I should be using my own account or starting up, something like OSH Cochrane, a Twitter account, because some people think that, okay, they'd rather be face to face with a real person rather than a faceless monolithic institution. And some others think, okay, well, it's a weird face, he's all yellow, I must have jaundice.
It's not real.
Yeah, is he not real? Well, that's just me thinking it might be funny. I'm not really sure which way to go yet. And we have a Facebook page, and we tried to put stuff in there that would be nice and informative and so forth. But, it's the 0.1 person years that, I have to put into this. So what do we achieve now in terms of hard metrics? We can measure the numbers of how many times our reviews are accessed in the Cochrane library. Well, not too bad. Last year, on average, 630 times in full text and almost 2,000 times in abstract form. And nicely enough, the boffins at the central office calculated a group-specific impact factor, and yay, we beat occupational medicine. But if we compare to other Cochrane reviews, like the one titled Interventions for Preventing Obesity in Children, we're quite far in terms of the numbers of access. But, so that means there's still room for improvement. But have we had any, well, that's a scientific measure, have we had any effects on real life? I mean, that's a real question. And we were really, really, really happy to find that the Americans picked up on our review on blunt versus sharp needles for preventing percutaneous exposure injuries in surgical staff. So basically, closing up, wounds after surgery so that the surgical staff wouldn't puncture their fingers, and if the patient has HIV or hepatitis C, they wouldn't get this nasty disease. And the FDA, NIOSH and OSHA issued this joint safety communication, and they based it on our evidence saying this is a good idea. Now that we try to market this evidence to our friends and brothers and sisters in the EU, that saying, well, would this be a nice idea to implement in EU legislation? And they replied, yes, we've put it on our newsletter. Yeah, thank you. That's very effective. So any suggestions on how we might have an actual impact there, very welcome. Thank you very much. Okay, we have meager resources where we know that our product is good, and there's studies showing doing a systematic review is the best, least biased, least corrupt way of finding out as near as the truth as you can find about something. So, okay, we know our product is good, but with the meager resources we have, how do we get the message across to the people who should really be listening and who should really take notice? So, okay, we've got high quality product, we have meager resources, and, whatever we know of it being implemented is all very haphazard. So, okay, the fashionable answer is, yay, social media, start tweeting and whatnot. But in the present climate of having to be accountable to your boss, sitting right there, that every single penny that we use is worth it. How can we know, if it's just a fad, craze kind of thing, that it's only just sexy and nice for the young people, but doesn't actually improve anything? So what are the returns on investment? That's an important question, I think. So present, of course, there are different kinds of ways of looking at this thing. You can start from the product side of thing, and there's lots of effort on the Cochrane Collaboration, whole collaboration level, of trying to make the product itself as readable as possible. So there's a plain language summary, so it's normal people speak and not just scientific speak. There's a summary of findings table explaining what do the results mean for a population with high or low risk. And then there are derivative products that people do. None of these that we have resources to do, but would be really nice. Some kind of summary of summary, or explaining in normal people language what to do with it. And it's really nice that some organizations are engaged in doing this, but we simply don't have the resources. So we just bang our drum and hope that someone gets the message. Again, the new solution would be, using social media to leverage the power of the crowd. When you go to Facebook and whatnot, you've got ready-made groups in LinkedIn. Ready-made groups could target these different audiences much more effectively, rather than sending out a press release and hoping that someone somewhere would catch it. I took two of our titles at random. We have reviews on the prevention of bullying, and another on the prevention of scabies infestation, which is those little nasty creepy crawlies that attack your gentleman's regions. And it's a big problem in healthcare circles. If a patient comes in and is infested, and then the staff gets infected as well, not nice. But a totally different audience from the bullying thing. You would think that bullying can be a problem in many different kinds of workplaces, but the scabies not so much. Would need to think about targeting different groups. And of course, like with the derivative products, we need to chop down. We don't want to offload full reviews to people. Well, here is a big piece of science. Read all this and you'll be smart like me. Not going to work. So chew it down to something manageable. Make tweets. You can't fit a lot into 140 characters, or to a Facebook post even. Then what I like to do, and I've heard that it's even advisable, even though I do it already, try to be a little bit humorous, use images, animation, like the picture here, me doodling during one very exciting company meeting. It's me just using puns and wordplay and all that. And finally, the great thing about social media would be to encourage people to do something with what you give them. So engagement, sharing, voting, commenting, quizzes, all that. So find out how this works. Do a study. That's the key objective here. So we want to formulate a strategy. Didn't get one from the space people, so we'll use Max and other friends. We run a series of reviews through this process, sort of a campaign kind of thing. Measure impact on a range of metrics. We compare it with the traditional metrics, and then we assess, well, was it all worth it with what we put in and what we got out. We publish the whole thing so that it would be a shareable thing and not just locked up in the space files, so that other people can bloody well make use of it, and then publish something like an idiot's guide, the idiot being me, that even if I can do it, then so can you, and people can make use of your good research and your findings. where are we at the moment? We applied for funding from the Finnish Work Environment Fund, and hopefully the idea being that we would start early next year. And so this is just me banging the drum, trying to get people enthusiastic and maybe a few more joining the team and giving me good ideas, suggestions on metrics and how to formulate the intervention and so forth. So what to do, where to do, how to do, quite a few details there. Not exactly, all in place yet. And which outcome measures, like I said, which should we use? Numbers of likes, retweets, comments, all that, or number of commenter per reader, and all kinds of different ways to measure. So in the spring, we would run the intervention and measure success, and in the autumn, analyze and publish. That's the intention. How to help? Join the team, ask questions, give me comments, ideas, or if you just happen to be sitting on a huge pile of cash, I don't mind at all if you just want to part with some of it. That's me being generous. So that's pretty much the idea, and that's what Finland looks like. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.